What's going on, Ambitious Vets? Welcome to episode number 19 of the Ambitious Vet Show with Air Force veteran, coach, Huffington Post contributor, and author Dwayne Paro. Welcome to the Ambitious Vet. My name is Chris Hoffman, Marine combat veteran turned passion-driven entrepreneur. We're here to dive into the trenches with today's top-performing military veterans that were once warrior-made, but are now passion-driven. Now, as they share their stories, their failures, and their journey of what it took, we just hope this unlocks your secret formula to living a more impactful, meaningful, and top-performing civilian life. All right, Ambitious Vets, so are you one of those vets out there with a big vision but constantly are getting hit with big adversity? Well, guys, that's why you are an Ambitious Vet. Those of you guys that are already in there that listen to this or catch some of the lives that I do on Facebook Live, you guys will see that we recently released an Ambitious Vet Creed that talks about what you're met with as an Ambitious Vet, and that is big adversity. Anybody that thinks bigger will be met with big problems, big adversity, and bigger circumstances to overcome, right? So it just makes sense. So to have a big vision, you got to be met with other veterans that have big visions, guys. That is Veteran Empowerment Transition Facebook group. So if you guys that are not a part of that, go and join it. We're literally creating a brand new breed of transitioning veterans. Veterans that are resourceful, self-aware, executors, and just extremely passion-driven. Guys, we have around 545 ambitious vets that come together, every demographic, veterans that are just getting out of the uniform, all the way to sharks that run million-dollar companies that just want to give back and help teach ambitious vets how to be successful. Guys, we do 2 weekly lives inside the tribe where I do one passion-driven tip every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I also do an interview with the top-performing military veteran, which is pretty much the Ambitious Vet live show right inside the tribe, where you get live engagement with some of these sharks that are inside the tribe. And guys, also, you guys just get to connect with some of these guests. You get free resources, strategies, new insights from some of the most ambitious veterans in the world, guys. If you guys are not already a part of Veteran Empowerment Transition, what are you doing? If you're a big, ambitious veteran with a big vision, get over there and endure your adversity with other veterans that are enduring the same issues. Guys, we'll see you there. All right, so let's go ahead and introduce today's guest. Today's guest is going to be Dwayne Paro. He was an Air Force veteran that served 8 years. After he got out of the Air Force, he dove right into a federal contractor job, and over 19 years utilizing some of the top soft skills that the military ingrains in us, like leadership, perseverance, resilience, self-discipline. He found himself now today being the Chief Information Officer of a federal aerospace engineering company. Now, over the course of time, he's actually branched off and is now starting his own company on the side called Landmark Life Coaching, where he's designed a couple empowering programs for veterans to kind of just plug themselves into and narrow those gaps in living that empowered life out of the uniform. He's the host of the Charlie Mike podcast, contributor of Huffington Post, and author of the brand new book, Empowered Veterans, Strength and Confidence to Harness Your Future. Now, guys, I really enjoyed this one. A few key takeaways and a few golden grenades that I want you guys to kind of be listening for is how Dwayne discovered his passion-driven life after feeling empty, after chasing money and security out of the uniform, and actually how he found that meaningful life. Really incredible. Also, how we can switch from being fear-driven to actually passion-driven. It's quite simple on how we dive into that, how to build confidence for bigger wins from inside out. And then, guys, I really loved his philosophy behind Ready, Aim, Fire, his 3-step process of what it takes to access an empowered life out of the uniform. So, guys, we're going to go ahead and dive right in, guys. You're going to enjoy this conversation because me and Dwayne kind of have the same message and the same passion for helping ambitious veterans really become empowered out of the uniform, reaching their full potential. So guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the trenches with Dwayne Paro. Let's get it. Brother, you there?
I am. Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's quite an honor to be on your show.
Absolutely, man. Well, thanks for enjoying just joining the Ambitious Vet movement, man. We're happy to have you. Absolutely. So, brother, what I want you to do is I want you just to, kind of fill the gaps from that bio and let us get to know a little about who you are outside of just being this empowered veteran, man.
Yeah. So, like you said, I spent 8 years in the Air Force, had some really unique assignments, got to do a tour in Saudi Arabia at the end of Desert Storm as part of Operation Southern Watch, spent some time at the Pentagon, spent many years, and we'll get into this, chasing an ambition, in the information technology field, which at the end of the day leaves you feeling empty, right? I really was not purpose driven over that long period of time. And I always had this nagging feeling of what's missing, right? What do I not have that I had in the military that I was always so excited about and couldn't wait to join the military? I joined at an early age of 17. Went in on delayed enlistment. 2 weeks after graduating high school, I was off to boot camp. And so, I always knew that that's what I wanted to do. I came from a long lineage of military members. And so I knew it was what I wanted from an early age. And when I got out, I got the degrees while I was in information technology, got out what I thought to was a great job, which, over the years has been really, really good for me as far as that, I made good money. It paid the bills. I was able to start a family, we've lived well, but I always had that something that was missing. And as I get ready myself for another transition, my son's going to graduate high school in a couple of years. And so I was like, well, I'll have almost 30 years doing IT. And I want to do something different. And so I said, what have I really enjoyed over my career? And it wasn't even the technology aspect, even though I made it to the top position in the IT, field. And I work for a really great company. We're employee-owned company. $200 million this year will cross the threshold. Wow. So, I've been an entrepreneur for many years, right? As an employee-owned company, you have to act like you are an owner. So in a little bit different aspects, you have to act that way. I just never really had the entrepreneurial aspect. And so I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, but that was passion driven. Right. And so, so that's when I really look back and I said, well, I loved partnering with people to grow in their lives, whether it's personal and professional. And so that's how I jumped into the coaching aspect.
You're right. You're home in this group, man. We got a whole bunch of passion-driven veterans in this team.
That's right.
So I just want to go ahead and welcome Donald Dotson to the show. Jared Lepbetter, welcome to the show, guys. Donald Dotson says, good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon, brother. Good to have you on the show and be inside interacting with the show, guys. If you guys have any questions, if you get any golden grenades, go ahead and comment on these so we know that we're providing value to you guys for sure. Now, brother, I mean, that's amazing, man. You getting out of the uniform and actually getting into a career and actually persevering and getting to the top over a course of 19 years. That's just absolutely amazing, man. And I know a lot of veterans, just including myself, that get out of the uniform that have trouble finding that identity, man. That had 5 careers, 5 years being out of the uniform, that just can't find that fulfillment. So can you kind of dive in and tell us about that transition story and tell us about it briefly and how you actually found that opportunity?
Yeah, it's funny, it's as I was deciding to get out of the military, because I wasn't sure for the longest time how long I would stay in. I ended up, serving 8 years, and I kind of knew it was time to transition. There was multiple reasons why I did my transition, but as I was thinking about it, I was networking, right? I was networking with other individuals that were civilians at the time. And I happened to meet an individual that said, hey, you'd be a great fit for our company. Let me introduce you to the owner, who happened to be his brother. And so I did an interview in Pentagon City. They made me a contingent offer that said, when you separate from the military, here's an offer to come to work for us. And so then I just had to work the transition. And while that all sounds easy and it's like, wow, he had a job, he had money, he knew what he was doing. Not so much, right? I had a paycheck, which was great. But what I didn't realize was how off I was on calculating that paycheck versus what I really should have been paid when I transitioned out, because you take so many things for granted in the military that's not in that base pay, your food, your housing, things like that don't show up as a dollar, right, in your check. And so I really undercut myself. So what I did was, instead of, being in the military and working a part-time job to make extra money, I was a civilian working an extra job to make money. Right. And so I did that for many years while I finished up my bachelor's degree, which I had started in the military, and I finished it once I got out, using the rest of my benefits that I had. And I still struggled, though, because it was a different culture. I went in at 17. All I knew was my home life, military life. And there's so much structure and so many things in place in the military that when you transition out, they just don't exist. And I went from a small town. I graduated in a class of 42 people. I was the student body president, K through 12. That's how small our school was.
At least you were the leader, man.
That's right. And it put me right in the middle of Washington, D.C., right? Talk about going from a one-lane road to the superhighway. And so here I am in my early to mid 20s, transition around, I think, 25, in a large city with rent extremely high, making a low wage, working a part-time job, trying to finish my degree, not even knowing if IT was really where I wanted to be. I knew it paid well. I knew if I could make it, I would do well financially. But there was many times I questioned, should I have gotten out? Should I be in another uniform, like a police uniform? Because I always had the desire to become a policeman. And I thought, well, it was a logical, transition. Right. And I actually had applied to become a local policeman and decided to follow the ambition of being in the information technology field purely for the money. When I look back, it was purely for the money. And, as I'm raising my son, I am encouraging him to find his passion early and follow it. And really understand his purpose. What is your purpose? What are you here to do? Right? Don't just find out what's the latest job that pays the most. Because, when we grow up, all we ever hear is, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? Right? What are you going to be? And that's always about money and career. It's not about who you are as an individual. And so I struggled through those years. I had anxiety, I had doubt, I had fear beyond fear. You could stack the fear. And I had to learn over time. And I credit my wife to a lot of this. We came into each other's lives around that time, and it was meant to be. We'll be married 20 years this year. Oh, wow. And so she has been my rock through that. And all those times when I doubt why I'm doing something or what I should be doing, she's there to assure me, no, this is right. This is what I see. And it keeps me moving forward. And so I credit a lot of my success to having her in my life at that time, because I think without it, I would have struggled even more.
Wow. There's so much wisdom there, man. And so much weight to those words. No wonder why you wrote a book. But it's like, man, really there's enough said there. Really, you leaned on, a rock, which is your wife, and you met her, like, it sounds like first year out of being out of the uniform.
Yeah, much. I did. Yeah. It was by chance.
you built the life with somebody, which is awesome. And some of us are not lucky enough to find that special someone just getting out and building that life. But ultimately, brother, it sounds like you found the trends, you found that opportunity, you chased that opportunity out of the uniform, and you found a way to leverage that. Now let's talk about how you actually started finding that passion-driven life. How did you start finding that purpose in your life? Because I think, like you said, a lot of us get out and we get driven off fear, right? Your book, and we'll get more into the concepts behind your book, your book is amazing around the non-tangibles and the tangibles of actually how to be empowered and successful out of the uniform. But we are triggered by fear, right? As we get out. And one key concept of your core strengths that you were talking about in your book is the adaptability. How do you get adaptive and be resourceful out of the uniform, man, right? So with that being said, how did you actually, once you started creating traction out of the uniform, how did you find that purpose in your life and become who you are today, which is a lot more fulfilled, at peace individual, brother?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from building your faith bigger than your fear, right? So you've got, I grew up, believing in God and believing, and having a belief in a higher power, right? I've never been an individual who is driven by structured organizations such as a church or a formal education like a university. Those things never drove me, because I can learn on my own, and I learn better on my own in my own way than having a structure. And it's the same thing goes for faith. I have my own faith. I don't need a structured organization to tell me how I need to believe and when I should believe and things like that. And so once I started to put those pieces together, I had to build a track record of success internal to myself. Because initially what I was relying on was somebody else or something external to me to prove that I was on the right path, to prove that you're doing the right things. And then one day it just I was listening, actually I was at a church listening to a sermon, and the individual said, sometimes even the closest people, and that may be family and friends, you have to push them away because they're not healthy for you. And so I was having some negative, scenarios like that in my life at the time. And I literally, some of the closest people I had to put at arm's length so I could figure out internally, who am I? Who do I want to be in the future versus who I am now? And use that internal confidence that I needed to build, actually. And use that as my track record of, yes, I can do this. And a lot of it, because I'm an introvert and because I've always been one to kind of step back and take a passive role, I had to put myself so far out of my comfort zone that at times I didn't really even recognize when I would do something. I'd be like, wow, I just did that. Because it wasn't me. It wasn't naturally who I was.
Right.
And so for me, it took a while. I mean, like my book is built on that 20 some years of things that I've experienced. And I just believe they're a good framework for somebody to look at. While it may not be go do this, right? It's, hey, here's an example. Use bits and pieces for what it's worth. But at least you have a reference to say, you know what, I can do something, maybe not exactly the same, but something similar to that for myself. And because, you have to build that confidence internal. Nobody can give it to you. Right. And so that's been key for me to finding my purpose. Was I was listening externally to people say, man, you're really good at this, man, you're a natural at that. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm going, okay, note that. And so that as I really started to evaluate myself internally, I could say that resonates. Those things match up. That's key. And that's kind of how I started to pick out my purpose over time.
That is freaking awesome. Guys, for those of you guys that are watching this live, if you guys are not sharing this with any veteran in your life, I don't know what the hell you're doing right now. Do not be consuming this knowledge just yourself. Share it with the world right now, because I want to get some engagement. I mean, Donald Dotson just said, faith bigger than fear. Boom. Golden grenade, my friend. Dropped it in. William, welcome to the show. We got William Proser that just joined the show. Interactive. If you got any questions, man, just go ahead and drop those in. If you hear a golden grenade, drop them down as well. Dwayne, brother, that was amazing, man. I mean, really what I heard in what you just said, man, is kind of like the concept that you actually wrote in your book. I think it's called the concept of the broad and build theory, where you're creating small wins over time that build confidence. One thing that I like to tell a lot of veterans that I mentor is that, as you continue to honor your word to yourself, and as you get to know yourself and get a connection to your word to yourself and create those small wins, that's where confidence is developed.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like what you were saying, when you got out of the uniform, brother, you were using that broad and build theory of creating small wins, telling yourself you're going to do something, you did it, and then you go to the next level and do it. And you're like, oh, wow, I can actually do this kind of stuff. And then it just kind of had your thinking get bigger progressively. And, now your life is huge. You know what I mean? You got anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, that's spot on. This past year, I spent 6 months with the Applied Neuroscience Institute, actually out of California. Yeah. Dr. Larkin and Dr. Johnson run that, and they have done extensive studying on the effects of positivity, right? Which was built off Dr. Barbara, I'm drawing a blank right now, but
It's in your
Richardson,
book.
yeah, Barbara Richardson, who created the broaden and build theory, which is the more positive you are, the wider range of ideas and thoughts you will have. If you're negative about things and you lead your life with the negative thoughts, you will think very narrowly, and that's exactly how you will operate. If you think very positive and you use that approach, for example, they say for every negative thought, you got to have as much as 9 positive thoughts to rewire that neural pathway to that negativity. So if because we're naturally built to think negative because from a perspective of evolution, we were built to survive in the wild, right? And so we assume everything is a threat. And so you build from your childhood up, whether you're trying to or not, these negative neural pathways, but you can overcome that by having a positive approach to life. And you start to replace those with positive neural pathways, which become very effective in transition.
That's so good, brother. That is going grenade after going grenade. And that's just awesome stuff, brother. So I could ask you so many more questions around that. But I mean, because I love psychology. I love human performance. I'm more of I do like transformational background stuff. So altering the way of being to create more opportunity.
Exactly.
And stuff like that. But brother, I want you to now get honest, man. I want you to get honest around what was one of the biggest failures of you. What was one of the biggest failures or adversities you took on getting out of the uniform? What'd you learn from it, man?
Yeah, I think that probably the biggest adversity I faced was I didn't truly know how to network properly. I didn't know how to build relationships properly. And I think I was born that way. Because when I look back, I'm like, that's the way I always was. And I had to change it. I was so stubborn in my mindset that I was like, well, I don't need to prove anything, right? I don't need to do this or that. And I really felt like I was, the whole cliche of being a self-made man. Nobody is. You can't be successful without it surrounding yourself with other successful people and people that are at a level above you. Don't be afraid to operate with those that you believe have achieved that next level that you want to get to. That's who you want to surround yourself with. And I didn't do that for the longest time. And I look back and I'm like, why? I was just holding myself back. Why did I not step out? Did I feel threatened? Did I feel, was it a ego thing? Yeah, ego's our enemy. Was I isolating myself because I was afraid to show that I had faults, right? That I wasn't where I wanted to be. It's so hard to do that, and again, with my son, I've been able to impart a lot of these things, which is amazing because I keep telling him, do not be afraid to, what people call failure. I call it now learn lessons. Don't be afraid to learn lessons, right? Because that is truly where your growth will come from. It's easy to say I'm successful. It's not easy to say, man, I really screwed that up, and I'll probably screw it up again, especially if I don't admit that I screwed it up. Right. And so, not networking properly because of whatever internally was holding me back. And it wasn't because people weren't coming to me and people weren't making themselves available and things like that. I was just putting up a wall like, I don't need that. I don't need that, Right. And when I really did.
Right. How do you think that impacted your life at that moment, not being able to build relationships?
Certainly slowed my growth, right? Both personally and professionally. And, I mentioned before, in reference to, I went through a period of really dealing with strong, deep anxiety. I think it held me there. I think it held me there because I was trying to just fix it myself, right? I just got to fix it. And well, at the end of the day, I didn't fix it myself. I needed support. I needed others around me and to get me out of that. And it took a long process because I allowed myself to sit and spin in that for so long. And so the quicker you realize people are there to help you, and partner with you, the better off you are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The world's like, it's a context change. Like your book talks about changing your perspective, right? Changing your perspective on, the world's either against me, the civilians are out to get me, or actually being like, you know what, this world is for me. And then figuring out what relationships I need to leverage to get to this mission or this end goal, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think too. I always had this opinion. I did not want to ride somebody's quote unquote coattails, right? I didn't want to feel like I was just latching on to somebody that was very successful and they're just taking me along. I wanted to achieve it. I wanted to achieve it myself, right?
Yeah.
But which you still can do, but you still need support. You can't do it in isolation. I've been in a mastermind and myself, and one of the leaders that's that runs the group, one of his quotes is, "Isolation is the enemy to excellence." Right. And it's true. The more you isolate yourself, thinking, like you said, well, that group, they're just civilians. They haven't experienced what I've experienced. And you're isolating yourself. Right. Educate them on who you are and what you're about. Because as a hiring manager, I've interviewed over all these years, hundreds of candidates. And I can pick out, no matter how poorly the resume is written, I can pick out the qualities of a military member. And I gravitate to them every time because I know what they can bring to the table.
Boom.
And so
that's good. So as a hiring manager, what do you think are the qualities that veterans have that can bring to take an organization to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, and that's the first whole part. The ready part of my book is on the core strengths that we either develop or we enhance when we're in the military. I mean, perseverance, persistence, adaptability, handle stress, immediate contributor, lifelong learner. I mean, the list goes on, right? And I think as a military member, you think, well, everybody has that, right? Because you are surrounded with those same people all the time, right? So everybody around you has that. When you transition out, that's not the case. There's people that can't even be on time. I mean, something as simple as showing up on time for your job that's paying you, right? I mean, how are they going to handle stress and persevere if it's hard to show up a couple minutes early for a job that's paying you, right? I've seen that year over year. I mean, these types of core strengths set anybody apart. And when I do interviews, I ask questions like that. We'll get to the technical stuff with them, but I really want to know up front, how do you handle stress? Or I give them a scenario. Here's a situation that's happened, and they're usually real world situations that have happened. What would you do, right? And 9 times out of 10, that prior military member will ace that part of my interview. Others, not so much. So, right. So I would never second guess the value that brings to employment in the civilian world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think even through digging through your book, I tried to get through it all last night, but it was just, there was so much like gold there, man, that it had me stop and think a lot. And like one thing that digging into the core strengths is about, okay, you got to know when to lead and when to follow, right? And whenever you get into an organization, understanding that just because you went to combat and you were 240 Bravo gunner like I was in Afghanistan doesn't mean that when I go into an organization, I'm shit hot. Doesn't mean that at all, right? It means that, okay, there's a new structure, there's a new organizational structure that I have to learn. There's a new rank structure that I have to learn their core values and figure out what the organization is all about to actually get up there to the top. Like you mastered, man.
Yeah. Sometimes in how I mastered it was sometimes I just sat back. I watched. What are the dynamics? What's going on? What drives this person? What irritates that person? How can I adapt to this situation? And if I can't adapt, is this where I need to be, or should I be somewhere else? Right? Because there's nothing wrong with not finding the right position the first time out, because you just don't know the culture of that organization. But I'll tell you what, if an organization has a strategic objective that is written specifically about supporting and hiring veterans, look strongly at that organization, because the company that I'm in right now and have been for the past several years, we are mostly prior military. How do we recruit? We ask around the company, who's getting out that has this background, and that's who we hire, because we're guaranteed to have the right candidate.
That's awesome, brother. Yeah. Oh, veterans are the best, man. We know we do it best, brother. We do it best. Plain and simple, man. No said there. So guys, I just want to welcome Stephen Kuhn, watching the show, Bennett Tanton, Christopher Harrell, all power hitters coming in, dropping in. If you guys have any comments, get any gold, any questions yourself, you just want to drop in, say, hey, go ahead and welcome to the show, guys. Brother, I want to get into, you just dropped a lot of stuff, but I want to get into this book, man, this brand new book, Empowered Veteran, man. What, you already dug into why you wrote this book. Over 19 years of climbing a corporate structure and then utilizing your executive skills and your military leadership skills to actually branch off, do a side hustle, get into this landmark life coaching company, and now write a book. Can you tell us what had this book manifest, and tell us more about this book, man?
Yeah. So, I had all these resources that I'd written. I started blogging, right, several years ago, and I was writing all these things. And, I said, well, I don't know that this stuff gets that great of exposure. I think if I bring all these resources that I've written over several years and pick and choose the ones that are appropriate, I think that I can write those into a book. Yeah. And so I spent 2 years collecting, analyzing, and I went out to 30 veterans of all, all periods of time, right? So I didn't have just all post 9/11 veterans or all, veterans in the period for me, or my dad's Vietnam veteran age and stuff like that. I had veterans from the Vietnam veteran era all the way to post 9/11. 30 of them reviewed the book after I had a basic edit done of it, had them look at the manuscript. And I said, if this does not add value, I'm not doing it. I'm not just going to put out something for the sake of putting it out. And, I've got some really frank feedback from it used to be a 4-part book in the manuscript. There's 2 parts that fell to the cutting room floor based on a Purple Heart recipient's feedback. He said, here's how this is going to be perceived. Here's my reaction to this. And I said, you know what? If that's how that perception is going to be, even if it's just perception, because you know how that becomes reality. And if that offends you, it's not going in writing. I took them out and I shelved the whole manuscript. And my wife said, aren't you writing your book? I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know. I said, it's a very hard process. I took it back out. And I rewickered it a little and came up with a new 3rd section for it and sent it out to a whole group of people again. And I started getting a lot of really good praise and thumbs up. And I said, okay, I'm going to push forward with this. Right. But that feedback and all that was absolutely essential, because while I may be fine with the content or as written, I'm not in the business to offend other veterans. I'm not in the business to compare my record to anybody else's. That this is not who I am, and it's not what I'm about. I just want to add value to others. And if this does not add value to others, I don't need to do it. Yeah. And
that's awesome, brother. I love how you just led with value, and you actually tested out the market before you release something, just because it's easy just to release something and be like, oh, I wrote a book. Come and talk, come and listen to me.
Right.
But, having the validity there of actually knowing that, the people that you want to be speaking to and getting to their hearts, right? And that's not about getting here. It's getting to the veterans' hearts. That's how you make, I believe, long-lasting change, is getting into someone's heart, not their mind. This is where we survive. This is where we become passion-driven.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. And just being able to actually, touch their hearts, man, that goes to show your character and how much work you put into this book, man. So I really appreciate you creating this content. So, brother, I saw that you broke this book into 3 steps: ready, fire, aim. Why did you break it up into those 3 steps? And can you explain each step in brief detail?
Sure. Yeah. I didn't have those kind of section headings for most of the process of writing the book. And I was working with my editor, and she said, we really need a commonality that ties these 3 things together. Right. And my editor, is the mother of a Marine captain. And so, her and I interviewed several, this is a side note, I interviewed several editors, and she was so passionate about the content, about making sure my voice was still there as an author, even after the editing that you go through. And, so she said, we really need to have something here. And so when I looked at it, I said, you're getting ready, right? You're ready. You have your core strengths. You're aiming, which is when you need to start developing your plans. and massaging them over time so that you can actually execute them. And then once you're executing, that's the fire aspect. You need, and part of firing is investing in yourself. You need to find, and once you have those plans, you're going to find some gaps, right? You might find, hey, I'm not so good with money. Well, I need to invest in myself. I need to fire on that aspect to improve so that I can be more competitive, more successful, whatever your end goal is for that. And so that's how I came up with those 3 sections that you've got to get ready, which is understanding your core strengths, which is who you are, and then aim, which is putting the plans together. And I just put a subset of plans in there. There's other plans you're going to want to do, but for the sake of just giving a frame of reference. And then the fire aspect is, here's some areas you want to think about investing in yourself. That's the best investment you'll make is in yourself, because if you don't invest in you, nobody will. And if you don't place a high value on yourself, nobody will. So you want to.
That's good, man. That's good. I love that. I love that, brother. So yeah, it's pretty much a framework on how do you become an empowered veteran? How do you live more fulfilled out of the uniform? I mean, Daniel Ulrich wrote your foreword, and I read some of the words that he said. And for those of you guys who don't know who Daniel Ulrich is, he is the guy that's behind Grunt Style. A lot of you guys see Grunt Style, you guys wear their shirts, but Daniel Ulrich is the guy that's behind that. He wrote the foreword for the Empowered Veteran, and he has a lot of things to say about the book, nothing but good things, and actually describes it as the framework for success for any veteran getting out of the uniform. So that is absolutely amazing, brother.
Yeah, it was an honor to have Dan agree to do that. Working with his PR company, Life Flip Media, Eric Mitchell made the connection for me, and we got to meet each other and have some conversations over the phone. And we just really, I sent him my manuscript first so he could see what he would be signing up to, and and he did an amazing job writing the foreword and just really putting his experience in there as well, because he's just such an inspiration of a veteran that is just making huge strides in the veteran community. Well, even beyond that, but
he's setting the example for all of us. He's setting the example for all of us. So Donald Dotson just said, if you don't invest in yourself, why would others?
Exactly.
Boom. Hey, that's a golden grenade that you dropped in here, man. You're providing a tremendous amount of value in here. So thanks for that, brother. So, brother, I mean, before we go ahead and let you go, and I'll give you a plug to go ahead and promote what you're most passionate about right now. So, you got a lot going on, man. Yeah. You are the definition of an ambitious vet, man. I want you to drop in, 3 golden grenades that could make immediate impact for any ambitious veteran out there that's at that breaking point, 2 to 3 years out, man. We all hit that breaking point when we get out of the uniform. What would be 3 golden grenades that you would drop for an ambitious vet that out there is just seeking the secret formula to take their life to the next level this year, man?
Yeah, I think number 1 is understanding your strengths. You really got to understand your strengths. And once you understand those strengths, then it's time to leverage them. You've got to, understand what they mean to you so that you can leverage them in an interview, in general conversations, in any way that you are trying to be more successful. And then, you've got to surround yourself with people that want to lift you up, that want to help you go forward. And there's a lot of veterans out there that want to help other veterans. So find them, right? They're not hard to find. They're out there. Chris Hoffman is probably one of the prime examples out there, right? This guy is doing amazing things in the veteran community. His energy level just exhausts me watching him. I might be getting old, but he's got a lot of energy, and he's on all the time. He's on 24/7. So there's veterans like that out there making huge impacts in the veteran community. And those are the people you want to partner with. Those are the people that are going to bring you forward. Do not do it. Do not try to do this in isolation, because I can tell you from experience, it doesn't work. And so, leverage others' lessons that they have, learned, and be more successful as a result.
Wow. Leverage other lessons. Woo! That was good. I just made a note of that, my man. Oh my gosh. That's a blog post right there, my man.
Yeah.
No, leverage other people's lessons. I love that. I appreciate you plugging, man, but this isn't about me. This is about you, man. So what are you most passionate about, man? I mean, Like you sent me a copy of this. I took a picture of it like this, all happy and stuff like that. This is by far, I've read a lot of transitioning books, man. I got to say, like, this actually dives into the actual real, non-tangibles that you have to develop, like the soft skills that you got to develop to actually create real results in your life. Like I said earlier, I dug in about 50 pages into this baby. And I was just like, holy cow, man. For those of you guys that have read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, I think this is that for veterans. And I'm not even lying, man. This is setting the core foundations on how do you become an empowered veteran out of the uniform, brother. So I just want to appreciate who you are for the veteran community, because this book is amazing. It's a quick read.
It is.
Quick read. But powerful.
Yeah, that was intentional too, because a lot of, people will claim they're not readers, right? And so it's like, here's a no excuse book. It's not so long that you get lost or that it's full of fluff, because that's not my style. I can't add fluff. It just doesn't work for me. In fact, when I read books, I make sure, there's so much that I don't even bother with in the book, because it's like, yeah, I got it, So.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's that thirst for knowledge, like you're talking about in your book too, just having that thirst, man, to go out there and find what are the secret formulas to taking my life to the next level. So, brother, what are you most passionate about right now? What do you want to dive into and promote here for the ambitious vets to actually have them get to know more about what you're up to, how they can get more closer to you, man?
Yeah, I think probably my big passion project right now that I'm working with Adam Bird on is our Heroes Mastermind. I think that we need to bring together in a formal way veterans, which include military, guard, reserve, mil spouses. We all have very common backgrounds. And I think in a formal mastermind setting where you can leverage each other and get to know and trust each other in smaller groups is key. And, and that's an area that is wide open, because there's hundreds of thousands of veterans and no single mastermind can take care of all veterans. And so, you may see others out there. I'd encourage you to go to my website, landmarklifecoaching.com, and go to the services tab. I have a link to the mastermind there, and it'll give you all the details of how we're structured and what it's all about. And there's a place there. If you want more information, just submit your name and I'll get right back to you and fill you in more on the details.
Oh, that's huge. And you guys are launching that in April, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Launching that 1 April. Right now, we're filling up what we call the inaugural groups, which is at a reduced rate. And what we'll do is we really want to leverage these people that are usually those that are in inaugural groups of anything are the most passionate about it. And we want to leverage them to help shape the future of the mastermind, because, never do you want to try to build something like that in a silo, or say to the people that are part of it, this is how we're going to do it. We want it to be a collaborative approach. We have a framework, but and exactly how it's going to kick off and in the general flow, but we're willing to adjust and adapt and make it what it needs to be to add value to everybody in the group, and then have everybody in the group be value adders. People to add value, whatever word I just used.
Yeah.
You know how that is, Chris, when you're building something and people want to come in and they just want to take. We want givers, right? We want people to be givers in this, because if you give, you will receive. And so that's really what it's about.
Yeah, no. Oh my gosh. Yes. I learned that lesson the hard way, but yeah, it's all about giving, brother. So yeah, man, you're developing a tribe. I mean, that is the foundation to get closer to you. And I think anybody would be lucky to be in that conversation with you guys. So guys, if you guys are ambitious vets that want to gain wisdom from somebody that has been out for 19 years, climb that corporate ladder, is going to be a best-selling author, and someone that is just out there that's living passion driven is the prime example. He's just not talking. He's actually out there implementing. Not a lot of people out there like that. He's implementing, taking action, and he's actually building tribes. And he has a huge Rolodex of influential entrepreneurs. I mean, damn, Daniel Ulrich wrote the foreword of his book. If you want even access to his network, I would suggest go and get closer to this man. This man is amazing. He leads with his heart. He's passion driven. He's a man of faith. And anybody that has those core values is good with me. So I say you guys go over there with him immediately. and get closer to him. So, brother, I just want to acknowledge you for who you are for the world, man. You're just an amazing leader. What you're doing with the Charlie Mike podcast, what you're doing with this book, what you're doing with this mastermind, what you're doing with Landmark Life Coaching. I mean, you really are setting the example and the standard of what it takes to be an ambitious vet out of the uniform and an empowered vet. And I just want to thank you for who you are for our community, brother.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for being on the show, brother.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, ambitious vets. Hope you enjoyed episode number 19 with Dwayne Paro, guys. As always, I'm going to go ahead and give you one afterthought from one golden grenade that really touched me the most. And it was when he said that, how do you expect other people to invest in you when you haven't invested into yourself? Right, guys? One of the biggest things that I dealt with for the first year and a half, 2 years, any of you guys have actually heard my story, is just that. Trying to get out there, figure out what was important to me, hustling at everything possible, getting distracted at every little shiny object that came my way, never really committed, persevered, or saw anything through, primarily because I never invested in myself. Therefore, I never knew what was actually important to me. I didn't know what I valued. I didn't know what my purpose was or anything like that. So no wonder why I wasn't creating big wins. No wonder why I wasn't creating increase in love, passion, even tangibles like money and stuff like that in my life, because I was not investing into myself, my skill sets, my mindset, my spirituality, my emotions. So guys, I want you guys to be looking in your life over the next week and be figuring out how can you invest more time into your growth. How do you invest more time into what you're the most passionate about, or a pathway that you're trying to take on, so you can narrow the time frames? Guys, I'm not talking about absorb yourself in content and get into a process of overanalyzation. God, I know how that goes. But guys, find one thing to learn over this next week. If it's a book, blog to start following, podcast to start listening to, maybe it's a course. But go out and invest in yourself and actually implement one key thing to invest into yourself to forward your passion, guys. Now, as always, guys, I would love for you guys to go ahead and rate and review the podcast. That's how we reach more ambitious vets. That's how we bring more people into Veteran Empowerment Transition Tribe. And that's how we bring more increase into your life as we connect you with more high-quality, ambitious transitioning veterans that are striving for more out of the uniform, that have big networks and a lot of resources to share. So, guys, as always, give me some feedback. My direct email is going to be choffman@vettrainingcoaching.com. My last name is spelled with 2 F's and 2 N's, choffman@vettrainingcoaching.com. Guys, now we already know that you're warrior made, but to become passion driven, go and implement just one golden grenade that you heard from Dwayne today, guys. And I promise you, if it's next month, 3 months, 6 months, or even 12 months from now, you will be living that top performing civilian life. Let's go get it.